Officer Lee explained to you a little bit how we want you guys to be a little bit more vocal today and ask your own questions. But we're going to start off with talking to, hi, Mr. Gomez. We're going to start talking to Doc about some of the things he went through growing up. And hopefully some of the lessons you're going to hear from Doc is going to help you with things that you're going through in your lives now. So first of all, welcome back, Doc.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being available. We really appreciate it. In regards to us knowing each other, well, this is going to be kind of awkward because I know a lot about your story, but I'm going to ask these questions like I don't know them. Okay, for all the kids that are out here. So you grew up here in Southern California. Tell me how that started. Where did you come from, and what city you grew up in?
So if anybody's familiar with Hollywood Division, there's that Kaiser on Sunset. I was born there. But my family's from China and Taiwan. So my grandfather on my mom's side, so my maternal grandfather, he immigrated here and he got a job immediately. He was actually recruited when he was over in Hong Kong as a personal chef. So he was the personal chef while he was here. I grew up in the Hollywood Hills area, and he worked in Beverly Hills. I am a product of a divorced family, and I'm also a product of the times. So I was a latchkey kid, and for those who don't know, a latchkey kid is when you are a kid and your parents are unavailable either because of work or whatever. You're given your own set of keys to the house very early in life, and you kind of just go to school and make life happen. So that's my beginning, definitely.
So what elementary school did you go to? Where did you start off at?
Kind of a little bit, when I started the school system, I started in a private, what was it, a private preschool or kindergarten? Like, I always confuse preschool and kindergarten. So that was my reality for a minute. And then I entered the public
School system.
So I'm pretty much a LAUSD kid. My first elementary school was Wilshire Crest on Olympic and La Brea. And then when they figured out that maybe I was smarter than the average bear,
easy.
I got moved to a magnet program. So I went to Wonderland over in Lookout Mountain in the Hollywood Hills. From there, then I went to John Burroughs. And then, like I shared with you, since I am a product of a divorced family, I didn't end up staying at John Burroughs and then going to Fairfax like my sister. I ended up going from John Burroughs out towards Pasadena. So then I finished up junior high and high school there. And due to the fact that I decided to join the military at 17, so I was a junior in high school, I didn't get a junior summer. I went to Oklahoma for basic training, came back home, did my senior year. Then my senior summer, which is pretty much after graduation, I went to Georgia, but because my training was longer than the academic year, I missed the admissions process for school. So my upper education started in community college. So I went to Pasadena City College before transferring to UCLA.
So let's roll this back a little bit. You talked about latchkey kids. A lot of our kids are in the same situation. You know, they come home, the parents aren't home, they have to adjust, adapt, feed themselves. Tell me some of the problems or scenarios that you had to go through with coming home with nobody being there when you got there.
You grow up really fast, right? You really do grow up fast, and you tend to lean on your siblings whether you want to or not. my sister was pretty much my caretaker. So my fondest memory of my sister is always when I was growing up, and she would just cook me grilled cheese sandwiches. So whenever it was like lunch or dinner, like it was the easiest thing and it was the most readily available. So it's really hard to eat healthy meals and plan and actually do things. I started doing my own laundry when I was 5, and I didn't really understand why you can't just put all the laundry in until all your clothes became like tie dye and like a little bit of pink here, a little bit of red here, a little bit of blue and purple, and you're like, oh yeah, those aren't the colors I was going for. So just grow up really fast.
Well, that's good. That's really smart to or really good to talk about that. But let's speed it up a little bit. And you talked about you got into the Army. I don't know, which branch did you get into?
So the military is broken into 5 branches. You actually have a officer right there who can chime in whenever he wants. But
well, this is about you. But he's right. There's 5 branches of service in the military. So we're gonna talk about his Fort Sill days. And I think Fort Gordon. You said you did your AIT in. I kind of missed that. Yeah.
It's got a good memory here. So 5 branches of service. The Army is probably the most well-known because it was established first. And if you decide to make a military career and then you get out,
Hi, Leah. How are you?
Hi. I don't know who that is.
That was Myrna Pace from the Timekeeper.
Oh, got you.
Up north.
Stop being so popular, Officer Lear.
Anyway.
But the Army is one of the branches of service that when you transition out of the military, the job skills are just transferable. There's a plethora of job skills available through the military, and a large number of them. I guess what I'm trying to say is like the Army branch of the branch of the military being the Army with the most diverse amount of job skills is the Army. So you could go in, just about do anything and kind of find a job. Some branches of service like the Air Force, those tend to be more technical, Navy a little bit more technical or medical. And then Marines, I can't really speak much for them except for the fact that like what I know of them, it's the diversity of jobs within other branches of the military is limited. So,
we have a couple of kids in our program that are actually getting ready to go into the service. They come in, they sit down, speak with Officer Lee, and Officer Lee gives them some great recommendations. I was never really one that was in favor of going to the military, but listening to Officer Lee talk about it and some of the benefits that could come out of it, as well as you talking about it right now, really changed my perception of it. So maybe you and Lee could talk about some of the benefits. You said that different jobs and skills that you can obtain, but some of the different benefits that the kids could get from that.
Officer Lee, you want to go first?
Well, one of the biggest things that the military did for me that I learned later on is the educational aspect. I'll never forget, I had a guy who was under me, and he was like the biggest screw up, but a great guy, good friend of mine. And he finished school having good Army fun like the rest of us, you know what I mean? A lot of fun. But, there's a thing called tuition assistance that the military, all the branches have. And if you take advantage of that, you can get your education at the same time while you're serving, doing your job. Because one misconception.
When you talk about education,
a lot of young
you're
people
talking
have
about your college education, right, Officer Lee?
Yes. Talking about getting an associate degree, bachelor's degree, and then graduate degrees, right? So,
or your doctorate degree.
Or your doctor, exactly. So I think Dr. Hsu agree, at least for myself, because my family didn't set aside money like some of you guys. My family didn't have money to set aside for a college fund for any of us. So I finished all my education because of the military. So that's one of the best things. I never would have finished college. I never would have been a college graduate had I never enlisted, you know? And that was a great route, which, like Officer Lear say, I promote that to a lot of the kids because I understand what it's like to come from a family where like, college ain't no option. It's get a good job and see where you go in life, you know? You can chime in and I can come back if there's something you want to add on that.
In regards to what the military offered me, my takeaways were that it gave me a lot of structure and a lot of perspective. When you're just a kid coming out of high school, you're really in a microcosm. You're in your own world, and that world is very limited. It's limited by what your own interests are, and it's limited by the amount of information that you choose to take in. So for me, the perspective of this perspective I gained from joining the military is that we're small fish. There are so many things going on in the world that we don't really allow ourselves to see. And being able to be privy to that and understanding that even in our most troublesome and our most adverse time, like, and I'm talking about everybody on this call, there are people who are far more impoverished, far more torn apart by war or famine or whatever. And coming back home when I was deployed and having that perspective brought on a lot of emotions. And one of them was anger because I remember going to Starbucks and I'm like, this person is just irate about having their coffee wrong. And here there's people not being able to even eat for a day. So then being able to tone that down and just realize that, sure, their troubles aren't the same as troubles I've seen, but let me figure out what I can do with this information. And I just realized how blessed I was. So whenever I get a chance, I reached out to Officer Lear and Kitty and some of the cadet instructors. I'm like, if there's anything you need from me that I can provide, just let me know, and I'll try to do my best to those services.
And we really appreciate having you around and being able to lean on you whenever we want to reach out and get some advice or words of wisdom for our kids. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
In regards to taking that step, so a lot of our kids are kind of young now, but eventually they're going to get out of elementary school, go on to high school. After high school, they're going to go on to college, university, or maybe even the services, like you said. What are some of the things, hurdles that you had to overcome, either going to high school or going to the military, that you can expand upon and relate to our families? Either hurdles like dealing with new communities or new experiences or new people, something like that you were able to rely on your family members or your schooling or whatever it is to overcome those hurdles. Can you possibly tell us about those?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to start with the most basic, and then all the adults, if you want to chime in, can chime in. And I think everybody's biggest hurdle is always going to be ourselves. We limit ourselves just by the way we think and by the way we by our environment and how it kind of molds us. But we're capable of so much more that we really don't realize until we give ourselves the opportunity. Outside of that, everything is kind of just like an inconvenience, like trying to adapt from a semester system to a quarter system, and realizing that, oh, I'm supposed to learn all this information that usually I take a year to learn in 10 weeks. Okay, let me try to do that and not fail out. Or let me see what I can do, because Officer Lee was saying, like, I didn't have a college fund to fall back on, and luckily I did have some tuition assistance, but I got to tell you, outside of community college, UCLA is really expensive, and depending on where you want to go, tuition assistance is just a drop in the dime. So I got a part-time job, and being able to juggle your experience of trying to have a college experience while you're working can be a little bit resentment forming. But you just do your best. The takeaway I got from the military and the takeaway I get from just life in general is that the people that you meet, the people that you interact with, and I'm talking about the good people, not the people who bring you down or any of those things, but the good people in your life, they're the ones that you realize you should cherish because they get you through these really challenging times. So if we're talking about hurdle, I always say that I'm my own biggest hurdle, and my mind is my own biggest hurdle. If I can't move past that, everything is just like an inconvenience. And it becomes less of an inconvenience when we foster good relationships around us. I see some people with siblings. I see some parents on the line. Like fostering those relationships to help you succeed helps everybody else succeed. And that's my biggest takeaway just from most of my experiences.
That's pretty good. You know, my grandfather used to say something. He said, if you hang around 4 guys that are bums, you're going to eventually be that 5th bum. So it was kind of harsh the way he said it, but I think you kind of understand. I think you kind of understand where he's coming from. Talk about the importance of choosing your friends wisely and how choosing the wrong friends could lead you down the wrong path. You kind of elaborated on that a little bit.
Well, there are just people in your life, right? And these people will influence you. Remember, only influence you. They don't control you. They'll influence you to do good or bad things. At the end of the day, you're the person who kind of pulls the trigger on what kind of good or bad behaviors you decide to follow. If you're strong enough, if you have that free will to make it past making bad decisions, or even if you make a bad decision and you pull yourself out of that habit or that environment, which is very possible, especially with a really solid social support system, you'll do whatever you want. Sure, there's definitely going to be people to influence you negatively, but again, it really does fall back on you. And that's why I talk about how I am my own hurdle. Do I want to hang out with my friends all day as opposed to work? Hell yes. Like, that's a given. But how do I let it influence me? And what am I thinking about in regards to short and long-term consequences? Now, sometimes we make mistakes. It happens. We're human. If we learn from those mistakes, then we just got the best. We just got the best playbook that we could offer ourselves. If we are able to kind of go through life pretty unencumbered, with very little stress or worry, it kind of makes it easy. So when stress does come, it doesn't make us as resilient. But keeping in mind that others don't have the same lifestyle, and being able to somehow influence others in a positive way can really help foster growth in everybody. So going back to your original question, between hanging out with good and bad people, yes, there are people who will influence poorly or well, but it's us that makes that decision. And don't let one bad decision hold you down. Don't let one bad decision hold you back. You just have to understand that we're human, we're fallible, we make mistakes. That's the whole point of life. Make mistakes, learn, and hopefully influence others in a positive way, so then we can continue this cycle.
Amen. Amen. So you graduate from high school, you go on to the military. After the military, you choose to go to UCLA. At UCLA, you're trying to figure out where your life is going to head at that time. You have to decide a profession. You have to decide what you want to do after school. Tell us a little bit about your decision process. Where did you go? What were you thinking about doing? Was it a doctor, a ballerina, a singer? What were you thinking about, and how did you come about making that decision?
So before I answer that question, what's the age range again for
Our PAL families are 7 to 17.
7 to 17? So all the fifth graders, I don't know how many people are here, but all the fifth graders, that's when I knew what I wanted to do very early on in life. I was sitting in a staircase. I was hanging out with a homegirl. She was having a problem. And I was just sitting there being present. And there's this thing where, like, everybody does it, but there's a technical word for it, where when somebody's talking to you and there's that aspect of your life, but then while they're talking to you, you have a thought. And so I had a metacognitive thought, wow, is there a way I could get paid for listening to other people's problems and then still being very present for my friend, because she was going through some really tough times. And for a fifth grader going through some tough times on your own, it's a little disparaging. It just sucks. So it was fifth grade that I knew very early on in life what I wanted to do, and I used that as a guiding force to kind of propel what I did, not just in the military, because when I joined the military, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And then it wasn't until I finished my first contract. So for when you enlist, or even when you commission, you sign a contract, and everybody in the military is first and foremost always going to be a soldier. Your duty is to push forward as a soldier and protect those around you. Outside of that, then we have an additional duty of whatever our job skill is. I, knowing very little about the Army, chose something in electronics. So I was a radio person, and that was like a really big mistake on my part, because I didn't do my due diligence and figure out what I wanted to do before I joined. But when my first contract was coming to an end, then I was like, no, if I'm going to re-enlist, I'm going to make this work for me. And that's when I found out about the wealth of opportunities, the wealth of job skills that the Army in and of itself has. So I became a mental health specialist. Following my passions, I just knew that, like, my AA, my BA, and then my doctorate, they were all focused on psychology. Personally, I probably could have given myself a little wiggle room and explored something else, because I already knew what I wanted to do. But I was pretty goal focused, and because I was paying my own way, I didn't really have a lot of money to putz around. Understandably, this is not the reality for everybody. Sometimes it takes people well into their 20s to figure out what they want to do, even into late 20s. And for those people, I just share with them, because those people used to be my friends growing up, and we would just talk. Just like, follow your passions, figure out what you want to do, and make sure that wherever you are headed towards, you kind of have an end goal. You kind of see something. Like, maybe you don't know what you want to do, but you can figure out enough to actually gain something out of where you are.
In fifth grade, you said? Is that like 10 years old? You knew what you wanted to do?
I was 10, yeah.
Amazing. Super amazing. Wow. Wow. I wonder how many of our kids know already what they want to do. That's super cool.
I just got to say, like, I came from a very disenfranchised family where riddled with divorce. Like I said, I was a latchkey kid. I didn't really see my parents very often because they were working, but it was all working class jobs. So they had to, kind of bust their butt to make a living. And so growing up on your own, it poses its own challenge, like on your own, right? But you kind of don't take for granted where you came from. And hopefully those relationships kind of like guide you a little bit towards not just making you yourself an individual a better person, but you and your family, whatever that looks like, a better family.
Wow. You know, not everybody is born with the silver spoon in their mouth. I don't know if the kids understand what that means, but not everybody was born fortunate with a very rich family with everything laid out for them where they can just sail right through in life. And to hear your story, to hear your perspective on things is really, really cool, really admirable to know that, you're this goofy little kid with the, maybe not goofy.
What?
That come from
okay.
that come from a broken family, and you're still able to make it to where you are today. That's really cool.
Thank you.
So now that you've gone through college, you're ready to go out into the real world. What happens next? You look for the job that you want. You tumble across other jobs before you eventually got on with LAPD, or what happened?
Well, it kind of falls back to what I was saying before. Like, I already felt like I was in the real world because I was working part-time. So getting a job wasn't really that hard. I just went full-time with where I was working. And then I didn't really have the luxury of enjoying graduation. I did take a trip. So I went backpacking in Europe. And I suggest anybody, like everybody here, if you get a chance, whether through the military or just on your own or through a program at school, go somewhere else. I wholeheartedly feel like that will add tons of value to your life perspective. But outside of my backpacking trip, which was kind of my graduation present to myself, I didn't really have much time to enjoy it because that's when September 11th, 2001 happened. And then a year later, that year changed everybody's lives, just kind of like COVID is changing our lives now. But a year later, that's when I was sent over to Afghanistan. So I spent another year overseas, gaining the perspective I talked about earlier, but kind of a more harsh perspective. So we just try to find balance wherever we can and try to understand our experiences and bring meaning to it. So I was fortunate, like I said, to know what I wanted to do. So while I was in Afghanistan, I was applying to graduate programs, which is really hard to do because the internet is crappy. You don't have all your materials, and you're trying to reach out to people for letter of references and things of that nature. But, you kind of chug along, and when things are hot, things are hot. But when there's downtime, and I think Officer Lee can talk years about how much downtime there is in the military, you just kind of make something happen. Otherwise, you're kind of just like there, like slowly melting because it was really hot. And then it wasn't until I got back home, which was 2003, that I got to enjoy a little bit of time off before grad school started. So between 2004 and 2008 was my graduate program. And then after that, like, you kind of, it's not a guarantee that you'll ever get something, but you network and you bring in these people into your life, and hopefully they add value to it. And some of that value can sometimes be a job.
So 2008, you graduate
Mm-hmm.
from grad school. What was the first job after that?
I worked in private practice under somebody else's license because I was still accruing hours. And I worked in skilled nursing facilities and board and cares. And so look at your neighborhood and then drop it down a notch. And that's where some of our seniors, that's where some of our mentally ill adults are living. And it's not luxurious by any means. So even within our own society, we can just unfortunately look downstairs at the streets and understand that there's a lot of adversity that faces people that just live near us. And so my first job was working with severely mentally ill and the elderly.
Yeah, wow, wow. Did you gain a different perspective working with the elderly?
So two things I learned about working with the elderly, because all of my experience up to that moment was working with children and family. And these are the two things I just like push on everybody. First and foremost is what I've been talking about is like keep your family and your friends close. They're the ones who are just going to help you get by the most difficult parts of your life. The second thing is brush and floss your teeth. Brush and floss your teeth. You will
Officer
never
Lee,
know.
are you listening, Officer Lee?
You will never know. Like, and you know, some of your like a lot of kids here, like you still have your baby teeth, and you already know how challenging it could be without that one tooth. Think about being adult, not working because you should be retired. Maybe being at home because your family isn't around as often as you would like, and then not even being able to enjoy what you like to eat. Brush and floss your teeth. That's
If
really what
you
it is.
That's
if
a
you
good
guys
practice that maybe you're gonna motivate our partner to do. But right now, we're gonna take a little break from the adults, and we're gonna open it up for the kids because
Okay.
you covered so much information. And before you know, some of the great topics you discussed are lost in their head because I can see some of them flipping their tablets up. So I know they're on Fortnite, and I want them right here with us. So let's go ahead. Miguel, you first, because I see your eyes on another screen. I can tell. Go ahead, you two. Ask your question.
Oh, did you ever play sports when you were young?
I was never very good at it. Like if you scroll down, you'll see that like this is not an athlete's body. But I did attempt. Say what?
I said you and Lear have a lot in common, huh?
easy.
Where do you guys get along?
So not anything official. I played a little volleyball in high school, but I got no hops, so that didn't really work out in my favor. But I played other sports. Anybody ever watch what was that? Dodgeball, where they had the channel Ocho was like the channel where they had all these obscure sports. So I hacky sacked all the time.
Okay, you have to explain what hacky sacking is because in the martial arts class, I'm always telling the kids don't hacky sack, and they have no
Why?
clue what I'm talking about. I'll
Oh,
show
man.
you later. It's horrible for when you're doing judo, but they do a hacky sack technique, which is not crossover whatsoever. So please explain because they look at me like, "What are you talking about?"
So hacky sack is just like a little beanbag that you kick. It's very similar to soccer or Pele, but it's little and you can do a lot of tricks with it. So my forte is a little bit less technical and more artistic. So I could do like a
Nerdy. You could say nerdy.
I'm going to come to your office and breathe on you. I can do like an around the world. I can do kind of like a pendulum, and then just regular kicking moves. So I hacky sack, but it's about the size of my little Dr. Freud crystal ball, but a little bit smaller, made of a soft material that you just kick around. And usually you kick around with at least 2, 3, 4, or 5 other friends. When I was in community college at Pasadena, we had as many as 20 people in our circle. So it was pretty fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you ever look at the Ocho, you might see me.
Alvin?
Okay, so I have 2 questions.
Awesome.
Did you take any AP classes in high school? And what was my other question?
While you're thinking, I'll answer your first question. So
Okay.
I took AP classes, but I wasn't very good at them. I will always encourage everybody to take an AP class. not just take an AP class, but take classes that push you out of your comfort zone. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I was in AP Bio, I was in AP Psychology, and I think that was it. Oh no, AP World History. Okay, so I had 3. But the sad part about being in an AP class, which is similar to an honors class, because unless they change the system, it gives you an extra point for your GPA. The whole point of an AP class is to get college credit. But to get the college credit, you have to take tests. And if you don't do well on the tests, you don't get the credit. So I will always encourage you to take AP classes if you can, even if you don't do well on the test. The other, I don't know if this is still the case. If you're in high school and able to attend college, I highly encourage late high schoolers, so juniors and seniors, to take college courses, because from what I remember, you can do that. And then you just kind of start way ahead of the power curve, which is great.
Alvin, why did you ask that question?
You brought up something great with that, doctor, because I told that to a kid the other day, and I learned that when my son was in high school. And don't get mad, parents, at what I'm about to say, because it's still about the love of education. But let's just say the California school system is horrible in the fact that, truly, from what you said, if you do it right, your 11th grade year and senior year, you can knock out your associate's degree, because English is English, algebra is algebra. Your math that you take in a community college or UC or Cal State, there's no change to algebra, all right?
Or language.
Yeah, or language. And I noticed that when I have friends with AP, a lot of people don't know about that test you have to take at the end, and they sign up thinking that, oh, this is college credit. No, it's not automatic. But if you do like what you said, doctor, where you take the college class, you get the college credit, plus it satisfies your high school requirement. And you do get ahead of the game, and you save money, because at least here in the Los Angeles area, the community colleges are free for you if you're enrolled in a public school. So that's a benefit that can help you, because if you can finish up to your associates, and like you come from a background like me with mom and dad don't have that special account, you just knocked out 2 years of college for free, and you only got to worry about the other 2 for your bachelor's.
That's a good point. Very good point. Very good point.
Do you remember
Alvin?
your second question?
Oh yeah. So my other question was, what was your favorite class in middle school? Because I always because I go at John Burroughs Middle School as well.
I know some of your teachers. My favorite class, the one that left a big impression on me, was world history. So I learned about places like Swaziland, Uganda, like, coming in as elementary school, you're just learning the basics of trying to figure out how to tie your shoes. Now you're kind of not in the big boy world, but you're getting there, right? So I'm like, Swaziland, is that even a word? And you realize, oh yeah, there's other things outside of Los Angeles. So there's a few themes I'm kind of pushing throughout this Zoom call, and one of them is just perspective. If you can gain that perspective, you get so much more bang for your buck, because it allows you to see things in different ways. Like, how many people didn't know that other countries don't celebrate Thanksgiving? That took me until my early 20s to figure that one out. So to answer your question, world history.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good questions, Alvin.
Who's next? We got time for a few more. How about Galaxy S8 Plus guy? I could tell you have something just brewing and stewing.
I forgot my question.
I did see somebody kind of low-key raise their hand. I don't know if that was Galaxy guy.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, okay.
Ask him what high school he likes, and then tell me
I'll
the
share
other
with
one.
you that, like, with a Zoom call, you have the opportunity to write it in format and then easily check whoever's chatting. The challenge with like the environment that you have is that it's noisy, right? You got a lot of things going on. Even with the earbuds in, it can overwhelm you. So there's different aspects of memory. One of them is working memory, and only lasts maybe, if you're lucky, 20 seconds. So if you just write it down next time, you're good to go.
Mhm.
That's pretty
Thanks.
good advice, right?
Yeah.
How old are you?
10.
What's your first name?
Alberto.
Alberto. Alberto, nice. Very nice. Thanks for tuning in to our Zoom chats. I've seen you the last 3 chats now, so thank you for tuning in. What school do you go to, Alberto?
To Camino Nuevo Charter Academy.
Okay. What high school do you plan on going to?
A magnet one.
Okay, great. Let me ask you, Doc talked about earlier that at 10 years old, and I assume you're maybe, what, 11?
He said he's 10.
Oh, he's 10?
I'm about to be 11.
Okay. So Doc knew at 10 years old what he wanted to do with his life. He knew what he wanted to do when he grew up and became a professional, when he got a job. Do you know what you want to do?
Yeah, an inventor.
Whoa, wow. Good for you. That's awesome. Have you thought about anything that you want to invent yet?
Yeah.
Can you share anything with us? I know it's not patented yet, so you might have to be careful.
Don't let him steal your ideas. Alberto, don't let him steal your ideas.
I've been studying about the how you see electric cars that the normal cars that we have make lots of gas like smoke that makes the earth be like more dirty. So I was studying about the electric cars. Then I was thinking, oh, why don't I invent an electric car that could fly?
Whoa, wow. Very nice. Tell me your first name one more time.
Alberto.
Alberto?
Mm-hmm.
Alberto.
Alberto, that's
Nice.
his working memory. Not when we get older, our working memory is even worse.
So, what is your name again, sir?
Hey, Alberto. So when I was younger, there was a movie called Back to the Future, and they had flying cars. And a lot of us from that generation see doctors laughing because he's been waiting for a hoverboard and a flying car. You might be the solution, young man, so we're banking on you, okay?
Yeah.
Alberto, when you make it happen, I'm going to go like, hey, remember me?
You'll be the first one who read the test drive.
Wait a second, Alberto. I'm your friend.
No,
here.
no take
I'm
backs.
the one that
No
started
take
this
backs.
Zoom chat.
Everybody will have a test drive.
Awesome. Awesome.
If it explodes, I'll give a free feedback.
Very good. That's cool.
Alberto, if it explodes, I won't need any feedback.
So Alvin just typed me a message. Alvin asked, why did I ask about the AP class? I was asking Alvin why was he curious about asking Doc about joining an AP class or getting into AP class. So I'm asking you, Alvin, why are you asking that question?
Oh, I asked that question because I'm also taking an AP class about coding.
Whoa, come on now. How old are you, Alvin?
I'm 13.
You know how to code?
Yeah, we're learning to code, and we're gonna take an AP test this year.
You might have to explain what coding is to Officer Lee. He doesn't understand that, but can you explain to him?
So it's like a set of blocks, and you make like a program run. So right now we're gonna like invent like a program that we have to send to College Board, and then after that we have to take the test.
So then, if you would teach that to us adults, say Officer Lear is the test person, you would start him off with like a Mickey Mouse puzzle so he can understand puzzle things together, right?
Yes, something like that.
Kind of similar to that, right? You got to start with the basics, right?
Yeah, we gotta start with the basics.
Yeah, okay. I get it. Thank you.
Uh,
You've educated me, and thank you, Lear, for having to educate me.
Alvin, when I was in second grade, there was a computer called the Apple IIe, and it's a Mac really, and every kid who had access to Apple IIe got to use a programming tool. I totally forget what it's called, but it pretty much looked like an arrowhead. And all it was you typing in things to make the arrowhead, which we called turtle, do stuff. And so you can make it draw, go up, left, right, and all that. So coding's been around for a while, but the ridiculous part about coding, which is why it's probably going to be a boom, like it's already a boom field, but it's super lucrative, is that coding is everywhere. Anything that you look at pretty much has been codified in some way. So good for you, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure codified is a word, Doc, but we'll roll with it.
Word.
Okay, guys, check this out, because Doctor said something very interesting. All right, he took it back to the Apple computers. We're going to do a little challenge, but every kid has to put both hands up because there's no cheating on this, okay? So put both hands up and we'll start. And the first one to answer this, you're entitled to a prize. So put your hands up, because if your hands aren't up,
Let's go, Alberto.
you don't qualify, okay? So what is MAC short for?
Ooh.
I know it.
Nah. Only for the kids.
Oh, well, I don't need my hands up then.
Anyone?
Here's a clue. If it's short for what I think Officer Lee thinks it's short for, then it's also a type of apple.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
No one? Come on, somebody.
Well,
He gave you
Alberto's
the
got his
biggest
hand up.
clue.
Alberto's trying to type with the other hand.
Listen, it is short for Macintosh. All right? They were called Apple. Now they're short for Mac. So you guys' generation only know as Mac, but they were called the Macintosh computer way back in the day when me and Doc and Officer Lear remembers. So now you guys learned something with a little trivia, okay? So when you're saying Mac, go ahead, Doc.
I was saying they learned a lot of trivia today. Well, 1980s Back to the Future. No flying cars yet.
Yeah.
Life is disappointing.
That's what this is all about.
So, what else you got?
Come on, there's a couple of y'all who hadn't asked anything yet. Let's see. Jessica, you're in the house. I see you still on. I know you got something to say.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah. Go ahead, ask away, Jessica.
I don't know.
Well, the answer is yes. Here. Only pretends.
How about I ask Jessica a question? Like, what grade are you in, and how old are you?
I'm in 4th grade and I'm 10.
Okay.
What's your favorite subject, Jessica?
Science.
Whoa, very nice. What do you want to do with science? Do you want to be
I don't know.
No? Do you know what you want to do when you grow up? Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah,
What?
a police officer.
No way! Wow. You're probably already more qualified than Officer Lee, but that would be super cool if you were to become an officer. That would be awesome. Why do you want to become an officer?
Because the job looks like it's really cool and it's like
for yeah.
Yeah, you know, doctor, when he talked earlier, he said that he knew what he wanted to do when he was your age at 10 years old. So it's really cool to hear another 10-year-old say the same thing, that you know what you want to be when you grow up. That's really amazing. So cool, Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're going to find that life is very fluid, but if it's truly a passion of yours, you'll make it happen. Not everything has to be what you feel like it needs to be, but if you really want it to be, it will.
Okay.
Super cool.
Awesome. Gerson, we see you around. I know you got something to say. What is it, my man?
Wait, who's Gerson?
He's under the title of Alina.
Oh,
I guess he took his unionized coffee break. So on to the next. Here. Oh, coffee break's over. There we go.
this is like a little Blair Witch Project going on.
That's Alina. That's Gerson's brother or sister. Hi, Alina.
Hi. We can't hear you.
My mom said she doesn't understand because it's on English.
Lo siento.
Alina. So we're talking about earlier with Doc and Officer Lee, thinking about what you want to do when you grow up. Doc had mentioned when he was 10 years old, he knew what he wanted to do as a profession. How about you? Do you know what you want to do when you grow up?
Yeah.
Let me hear it.
A doctor.
Wow. Super
A
cool.
doctor like
That's
Dr.
awesome.
Chu or a different doctor?
As a doctor, what do you want to do? Do you want to treat animals? Do you want to treat humans? Do you want to be able to give advice? What type of doctor do you want to do or be?
Take care of dogs.
Nice. Nice.
Alina, for the record, I don't give advice. But being a veterinarian is probably one of the most challenging because you have to learn all different types of animal anatomy. But all the vets I know love being a veterinarian. So I hope you can make that happen.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Officer Lear, I have to go because of my AP class.
You don't have to flaunt that, Alvin. We get it. You're in an AP class. All right.
Okay,
Don't let him.
No,
Don't let him shade. You do you.
that's super cool, Alvin. Good job. Keep up the
thank
good
you,
work,
Officer
okay?
Lear. Okay.
Good meeting
We're
you.
super proud of you, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Have a good
Okay,
day.
you too, Officer.
Go ahead, Alberto.
Is it cool being a doctor?
It really depends on what kind of doctor. So I'm a psychologist, and I love being a psychologist. You really don't start to understand the amount of influence, the amount of possibilities that are out there until you get into the profession. But for me, being a psychologist is really rewarding. I was thinking about being a medical doctor for a little bit because medical doctors do residencies in various specialties. So I could have been a medical doctor with a psychiatric residency, but you just have to look at the pros and cons of both. And for what I wanted to do, being a psychologist was perfect. And I've loved being a psychologist ever since. So yeah, I love it.
So, you had another question?
I had another question, but
That's okay. So we're coming up on the hour. We want to let Doc go, but before we let Doc go, we have a challenge for Doc. Yeah. So you mentioned last time you were on, you wanted to challenge the kids.
Push-up?
We'll see. Who's on the chat that's ready to do push-ups? Raise your hand. Whoa, Yuritsa. We nominate you, Yuritsa. So this is gonna be the contest. Each of you get 30 seconds, and we'll see who could do the most push-ups in 30 seconds. The winner gets a prize. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All
Just,
right.
just so you know, you have an advantage because I put on that COVID 19 pounds, so you're good.
So adjust the camera so we can see how many push-ups you do. Officer Lee, you count for Doc, and I will count Yuritsa, okay?
All right.
I'm ready.
Officer, you count for Doc, and I'll count for Yuritsa. So let me get my stopwatch ready. Hold on 1 second. You guys tell me when you're ready.
we're ready.
Yuritsa, I can't see you.
Oh, wait. Okay.
She's ready. She's got like a pad.
Yeah. All right, set, go.
Pero bien,
10 seconds.
Is she beating me?
Tú también lo vas a hacer.
That's 20 seconds. 23, 24. Come on, Yuritsa.
Woo!
Time. 30 seconds. Time. You can stop now.
Do we have an official count?
Yeah.
Galaxy did. So Alberto did 23. How many did Doc do?
Wait, are you counting for Yaritza?
I was counting for Yuritsa, but Jake counted for Alberto.
Oh, okay.
How
Doc
many
did
did
32.
Doc did 32?
Yes.
And Yuritsa did 27. But you know what? Doc, you didn't go all the way up on your push-ups, so we're going to have to take off 10 points or 10 push-ups. So the winner of this challenge is Yuritsa. Oh! Yuritsa, you get this medal next time we see you, okay? Don't forget to ask. Sorry about that, Doc. You're a loser once again.
But you see, the biased judge that don't know the standardized push-up, you see what happens there?
That
That's
we're second. So next time we'll go to you, Alberto, and hopefully you'll get first place, and we'll have a prize next time around. Again, Doc, from all of our family members, from the whole organization, we thank you profoundly for coming out and talking to everybody. Thanks, Doc.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day, Doc.
Good job, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.
Peace.
Peace.